Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Employment Committee. Have we had any apologies?
Apologies have been received from Council accordingly.
Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting, can everybody agree that those are a correct record? Thank you. I'm not aware of any questions from any members of the public. Have you received anything, Alex?
Nothing's been received.
Thank you. We're now moving on to the workforce update. Angela, I think you're going to take us through that.
So it's been a really busy time for the HR service since we last met, and we've been designing our people strategy. And I think it's fair to say that the people strategy will help shape our HR service offer and areas of priority. So I want to talk about the people strategy in a bit more detail, because I think, we all know that people are our greatest asset, and it's important that we have a framework that outlines how we will attract, retain, upskill and nurture our colleagues who are highly skilled, passionate about working for Trafford and embody our values. And we want everybody to share in that, so that we want to make Trafford the best place for people to visit, to relax and obviously to work. So we've developed a people strategy. It's directly aligned with our corporate priorities, and it connects our strategic priorities with our people through the employment journey. So it's been informed and co-designed by a number of important stakeholders, including the trade unions and chairs of our staff network groups. And our 28 EPIC pioneers who we've recruited across the directorates to help us to, shape our people strategies, and they help us to test out and pilot all of our people initiatives. So the people strategy is framed around 4 key pillars that show how the HR service will enable the employee journey to be a really positive experience, and one where we recruit and nurture talent, take care of ourselves and each other, and we provide the tools for everybody to, be the best that we can be. And we also ensure that we recognise and reflect our diverse communities in the workforce by, one of the things in there is we want to have an inclusive workforce that supports our ambition to be an exemplar employer of choice, and obviously one that is inclusive. So it's underpinned by our EPIC values. We want every colleague who works for Trafford to know what they are, what they stand for, and to champion and embed them and the behaviours in everything that we do. And I think, this way we can all make a difference and contribute to ensuring that Trafford is a great place to work and one that has a really supportive culture. So how are we going to do this? So it's important we recruit the right people who reflect our values, and we've developed a training offer that supports how we do that. Our approach to attraction and recruitment will help to support our ambitions for a more inclusive workforce and one that is representative and embraces our values. And this will be tested at all parts of our recruitment process. So we have a very comprehensive total rewards package, and that includes, a competitive salary arrangement. We've got a great pension that supports the work-life. We also support work-life balance. We've got a range of family-friendly employment policies and benefits. All of this is aligned to the Greater Manchester Employment Charter, and it's all about supporting our employees with secure work. And within the framework, we want to encourage our employees to develop careers with us, not just a job. It's about having that clear line of sight as employees come into Trafford, and they may come in through an apprenticeship route, but we want them to be able to see where they can develop and grow within Trafford and stay with Trafford and you know, kind of have longevity in their careers here in Trafford. So there's a number of enabling strategies within the wider sort of people framework. So we've refreshed the health and wellbeing strategy, working in collaboration with our colleagues in public health and the trade unions. And this is around, you know, enabling colleagues to lead healthier lives and have a healthier lifestyle. We've got a comprehensive calendar of events in place. Our agile working arrangements are being fully utilised, and we have a strengthened focus on employee wellbeing as an integral part of our workforce commitments. So, you know, to demonstrate this, we've recruited 19 mental health first aiders and trained them to undertake that role, who support employees who may be experiencing, you know, kind of the first signs of stress. And it's about them being able to take them for a friendly chat, cup of tea, and being able to signpost them onto more professional services. So it's really important, and you know, I've talked before about how we engage with our workforce. It's really important that we continue to do that. We've held a number of engagement sessions over the last 12 months called Let's Talk, led by the Chief Exec, with the leader and deputy leader and the corporate leadership team, with our managers and with our staff, to help us to also push out some really sort of strategic key messages, but also opportunities for staff to kind of like feed in and help shape some of those strategic initiatives. And, you know, these sessions have been held at locations across Trafford, and the feedback has been really kind of key to how we've developed the people strategy. We've recently conducted a Be Heard employee survey hosted by Best Companies. I think it's amazing that we've managed to achieve a 51% completion rate. You know, so and that, given that it's the first kind of comprehensive survey that we've done for a number of years, I think we're really delighted with that, and we're currently reviewing Best Companies are currently working with us, and they will be providing some more detailed feedback in the new year. We're going to be publishing the high-level outcomes to staff before Christmas, and we've got a Best Companies Index score of 631.9, which gives us an accreditation at the moment called One to Watch, which means we've got a good level of engagement according to the companies that they also use the Best Companies engagement surveys. So developing an engagement strategy that will underpin how we feedback and help and work with our workforce to shape some of those improvements in those areas that we might need to work on, but also celebrate, you know, those areas that we're doing some really fantastic work in, and you know, that's all part of our engagement approach. So, as you know, we've recruited a team of epic pioneers from across directorates. They're helping us to embed our values and be a soundboard for all of our people development initiatives. They've been involved in a number of initiatives. They're also kind of holding their own workshops with staff in their sort of directorate areas, and they're really just a great group of individuals and great ambassadors for change. So we've redesigned our approach to appraisals and one-to-one. So it's about kind of more regular, meaningful, kind of ongoing conversations. The paperwork is important, but I think the emphasis is more on the conversations that managers have with their employees. And you know, it's an opportunity for people to reflect and, you know, kind of talk about sort of some of their achievements and focus on where their development needs might be, and discuss any support that might be needed, and also check in on how they're doing. You know, there's a whole well-being is really integral to us as an organisation. So we provided a toolkit and training to support managers to make the most out of those epic conversations. And we've also designed a suite of learning, again, to support our managers to be great people managers. And we're currently piloting the sessions, and we'll roll them out in the new year. So how are we going to monitor that? You know, kind of how we're being successful. So, the people strategy will enable us to priority our areas of focus, supported by those enabling strategies that I've just mentioned, health and wellbeing strategy and the engagement approach. And the HR service will continue to work in partnership as enablers, business enablers with our client managers, working in partnership with our colleagues in the Greater Manchester shared service. Our aim is that we will provide timely advice and guidance and that whole kind of infrastructure that we need, so that managers can be great people managers. And, we'll adopt a people-centred approach to everything that we do. So the strategy, the aim of the strategy is we're going to launch it in January, but it's not a standalone document, and it won't be something that kind of lives on a shelf. It will very much evolve, as we further engage with the workforce and those kind of groups who've been with us every step of the way in helping to shape where it is thus far. But it's underpinned by a plan, a supporting kind of project plan that will help us to evidence kind of those areas that we said we would, we've got the commitments in those kind of 4 strategic, those key pillars. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and take some comments at this stage or questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Thompson?
Might have mentioned this before, I was a little bit late, but the accreditation score, 631, and we are one to watch, which is great. What's the top score? 1,000, is it?
Yeah, right. It's 1,000. Yes, so yes, you might have just missed that. So right. the score runs at 0 to 1,000. I'd be really interesting to know who has got that score. I doubt very much whether, but that's in our aspirations. It's to stretch now to kind of over the next 12 months. We've got the year of engagement and the year of all of those kind of those areas of focus that we'll need to address, and then we'll kind of run the survey and improve our engagement target.
Can I just ask, you said we're following the Greater Manchester Employment Charter, which is fab, and we want people to stay as a career here. We want people to come in and then build their career. How does that get mapped out? How do you know that that's actually happening? You map people's progress?
We don't at the moment, but it is something that in our sort of supporting project plan we aim to have as an objective. So we can look at cohorts of individuals who kind of join the organisation and track them. I think the obvious kind of starting point will be our apprenticeship cohort. I think we're doing a piece of work with that at the moment, so that we give them a really great and rounded experience of working for Trafford. And absolutely, the plan is for us ideally to be in a position where we can offer them secure, meaningful career pathways, so that they can, kind of continue their career within Trafford ideally, or alternatively, within Greater Manchester, if for whatever reason, we can't offer them the opportunities that they seek at a point in time.
Thank you. Councillor, did you?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. Again, I'd like to just thank the officers from HR for the amount of information. It represents an awful lot of work which they're doing to support staff and to look at the way forward. Regarding yes, a decrease in the number of staff leaving is welcome, but again, could I say, is this a regional GM or a national trend? The employment recognition awards, which I see you've mentioned, it escapes me, but is this the 4th or 5th year that they've been run? Because it is important that we do acknowledge the work of our staff and reward them. Regarding the apprenticeships, new apprenticeships, again, these figures make good reading. You've only included the last 2 years, figures from 2007. The history of Trafford and involvement with apprenticeships goes far greater, and I think you're underselling yourself. And it does lead to see a trend in which all members are supporting apprenticeships over these years. And finally, on sickness, well-being, sickness, absence, again, it would help if we saw the trend from other authorities. We have had these figures in the past. It does show a true picture. Thank you for your report.
I think what Councillor Rigg is asking is the figures would be more meaningful if we had some benchmarking to look at them alongside. So perhaps that's something you can think about for the next meeting. Thank you.
So I was just going to mention on the benchmarking. So what we tend to do is do the annual benchmark. We can look at it, but it tends to be more difficult to do the real-time, month-to-month benchmarking with GM colleagues because I suppose the timing of them having that information. But certainly we can add some context around maybe the annual figures, as you know, if that's helpful, and then we can see.
All right, thank you. We're now moving on to agency spend for Q2.
Okay, so agency spend Q2, which is July to September. So the total spend was a bit over 635,000, and this is an increase on Q1. So Q1 was a little under 500,000, so there is a significant increase. If you compare it with the same period last year, actually positively, all the directorates decreased except for children's. So if you compare the position with this year with last year, every area has gone down except for the children's directorate. So moving on to children's, as will have been reported at previous employment committee, we still have continuing issues recruiting and retaining children's social workers. And, you know, it's a very difficult, I think, world out there for that type of role. Obviously, the Ofsted will have had an impact. So if you look at the agency spend for children's in the quarter, about 88% was social workers. That is, you know, we can see what the issue is. So there's lots and lots of work being done at the moment to try and improve that position. We've got HR supporting the service, and they've created a comprehensive action plan. So looking at things like attraction. So what package are we offering our social workers? The basic salary, any allowances, enhancements, etc. Any other benefits we can provide. Looking at, you know, how we recruit them, looking at the platform we use, you're looking at more innovative ways to sell the council, sell the role. So there's work around that. We're looking at work around the onboarding process. So when we actually attract a social worker and bring them in, what are they experiencing in their early days within the council? You know, what's that journey look like? So we're trying to look at that area as well. We're looking at the learning and development package. So, you know, what are they receiving? Looking at career pathways, which we mentioned before. So what routes can they take once they're a social worker within the organisation? We're also looking at some sort of more longer term measures as well. So trying to be in a position where we can grow our own social workers. So there are different routes, and what we want are different routes for different types of people, rather than sort of a one size fits all approach. So we're exploring those, and we've got a couple of schemes at the moment to do that, a couple of different routes. So lots and lots of things in process at the moment. We've got a big recruitment campaign coming up in the new year. We've also got a new Director of Children's Services starting as well. So obviously she'll be, you know, looking at the work we're doing and, you know, giving sort of the check and balance. And, you know, we're trying to learn from other organisations. I think across GM, there's lots of difficulty at the moment, but we're trying to learn from sort of organisations that are managing to attract and keep social workers in the children's services arena. So lots and lots of work ongoing at the moment.
Thank you. I think this is a national problem in that the number of qualified children's social workers is going down year on year. And as need increases, the role gets that much tougher. So people are leaving a lot earlier because of the burnout and the stress. So although it's unfortunate that the spend is what it is, we have no choice when we have a statutory obligation to these children. Councillor Acton.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I do take your point, Chair. However, I think it's useful to learn from others. So if there is good practice around in terms of recruitment and retention, then I think we should learn that quickly and as fast as possible, because it does cost more to spend on agency than it would if we were able to employ our own staff. But much more important is the quality of development of the vision that we're providing, because obviously you're bought into the authority, and agency workers, as good as some of them are, they don't buy into the authority. So I think we all know what the issues are, and there is a national shortage, but I think we have to try everything to ensure that we reduce that. And I know that we have it on our agenda on every meeting, and I think that should be, and I would like to see what that good practice is in other authorities at the next meeting, so that we have some kind of report on that, so we can have a discussion on it.
I think also it's not just the cost, it's the cost to children when they're constantly having their first social worker change on a regular basis. It's a huge emotional toll on some very vulnerable children. So anything we can do to attract and retain staff, we need to be doing. Councillor Akinola.
Just wanted to ask about the demographics. It might be something that you do each year, but what the breakdown is of females, males, race, but in particular age. We're going to have a lot retiring at the same time, leaving a massive gap. Just wondered if you have that sort of information, if we could have sight of it.
I don't have it off the top of my head, but certainly that's something we can provide fairly easily, yeah.
Perhaps you could send that out by email, so we've got a good idea of the composition of the workforce, and we are going to be facing major problems somewhere down the line, possibly not too long ahead. Thank you. Councillor Rigby.
Yes, thank you. I won't repeat what you said, which I agree with, or the various considerations and arguments concerning agency workers. But as I see in 2.16 on page 15, that's regarding growing your own social workers, which, I applaud, but isn't there a danger that you grow your own and they disappear to the agency? And that would be an expensive exercise, an additional expensive exercise for the council.
Yeah, and that's why we have to make sure that once we've attracted them, that we'll be looking at retention, and we're looking to make sure our package continues to be competitive. They're appropriately onboarded, they're in line with our organisational values. So that's why that becomes even more critical if we can grow our own, that we don't then lose them to other organisations. So yeah, it's the whole range of activity is equally as important because they're all interlinked.
Could I ask if you're still in consultation with other authorities? So agencies aren't playing one authority against the other. I know through Northwest Employers that was agreed a few years ago, so that you agreed a figure, so agencies weren't playing off one authority against the other.
I think the problem is because the shortage is so intense that agencies that have agreed those things can't just provide the staff. So you're having to go to alternative agencies to ensure you've got the cover for your statutory services. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Mm.
I think on that point of what Brian was saying, it's my view that we can make it more attractive to work for an authority than for an agency, because obviously an agency will top slice for a profit for themselves, and because that is the nature of it, and I think if we can provide the wage structure that is attractive, and also the attractiveness of flexibility within the workforce, it is probably attractive to some of the agency workers. Then we've got to do that, and I think there will be good examples across the country where we hopefully would be able to learn from.
Yes, through you, Chair. I can't disagree, but it's a minefield. Let's be perfectly honest. We're playing Peter against Paul, and I've been in many discussions with various members and officers from other authorities over the years, and it isn't easy, David. It is, but you're right. There's got to be an answer, because it's essential that we provide good quality social workers for vulnerable people.
I think from experience, sometimes the actual pressure of work in an authority means that staff just can't cope anymore, and then they go to an agency and they move to a different authority. You get the same churn, you know, as the responsibilities get greater, workloads get greater, cases are more complex. People just can't cope with that, and so they leave, they go to an agency. Knew when they go somewhere else, that level of responsibility isn't on them. And I think that's the mindset. And while cases of children in need, and same with older people's services, that pressure's just going to get more and more intense. And I don't think money is necessarily the answer. I think it's the fact that you can say, I've had enough, I'm not coming in next week, tell the authority I'm finishing, and then they can have a break, move somewhere else. It's the actual nature of the work rather than the conditions and the salaries that makes people burn out.
Well, I do accept what you're saying, but I think that there are ways and means that you can adapt and shape the workload, and to do it without the kind of pressures that we do it now. I just think there has to be a different way. I just think it's completely wrong, and it doesn't do the service users any good. And there should be different ways that we can provide a workplace that they would be happy in. And I think one thing that we have some really good points on is that you are part of a team, and it's how we develop that team in a way that retains people. And I'm not saying it's easy. I just think that we have to, somewhere along the line, we have to try. I'm sure everybody is trying.
Could I just ask for some clarification on 2.3 in regard to care assistants? How you say setting up a staff bank, particularly for Ascot House, and I just wondered how you were promoting and advertising the staff bank, and how flexible are the hours you're offering people who opt to join the bank?
The bank's fairly recently established. I'm not close enough to the detail in terms of how they're going out, but I would say, in the similar methods to permanent recruitment. But I do know that this seems to be reducing the reliance, and it has been successful.
I think it's an interesting initiative, but I didn't know this was actually happening. So people who might be interested in becoming a member of this bank might not know about it. So I think we need to be much more proactive, because that would reduce agency spend as well. If people knew they had the flexibility and could be called on as and when needed, but not feel forced to have to turn up. So if you could get some further information for the next meeting, thank you. On this item, anybody anything else to add? Thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 6, which is on social allowances.
Okay, so unsociable hours allowances review. So this paper is a follow-up to a paper that was taken in March to Employment Committee. And the paper was specifically around one service, supported living. And it was around, there were two aspects to that paper, but the bit that's relevant for this is around the fact the allowances scheme didn't have quite enough flexibility for a particular scenario within the service. So we made a slight tweak to that. Then that led to the suggestion that it might be time to have a little look at our allowances structure for unsociable hours specifically, to see if it's still fit for purpose at the moment. Okay, so to mention as well, this was sort of an isolated issue, and we've gone out to ask colleagues within HR and the services as to whether there's any other feedback about our unsociable hours and whether there are any other issues that are arising. And we're not aware of anything else. We think this was just service specific at the time. So what we did is we looked at all those staff who currently receive an unsociable hours allowance to check the numbers and to check the services they work within to make sure they're all still appropriate. And what happens basically within the service is they are assigned a percentage payment, and they receive that every month. So it's a percentage of the basic pay, which is based on the level of commitment in unsociable hours. And then services will amend that if their shift pattern changes. So we're confident that this has been applied correctly, and that services are making those changes when appropriate. So that was the first aspect. The second aspect was to understand what other organisations, particularly local authorities across Greater Manchester, but also other public sector organisations are offering their staff when they work in unsociable hours. So what we found is organisations have a range of different schemes, so there doesn't seem to be any sort of consensus or common approach. There are two main types of schemes. One is where somebody gets a percentage enhancement of their basic monthly salary based on the frequency that they work the shifts in the unsociable hour period, so evenings, weekends, nights, bank holidays. So our scheme is this type. And the other type of scheme is where you only look at the hours they actually work in the unsociable period. And then when they work hours in the unsociable period, say they work on a Saturday, you apply a percentage uplift for the hours worked in that period. So it might be a much higher percentage, so potentially up to 50% or higher. So yeah, two main types of schemes. But as I said, there was no sort of commonality of approach. And as well, it doesn't appear that other authorities have changed their schemes in recent years. So basically, the benchmarking sort of suggests that we're not out of line with other authorities within Greater Manchester or other public sector organisations. And as well, I suppose at the moment we're embarking on the health and social care integration. So in the future, obviously, as that gets further progressed, working patterns may change. So the sort of feeling is that it's a bit too early to try and sort of look at putting a solution in where there isn't a problem. But as working patterns may change, then we could look to see what we need to do at that point. And again, at that point, we'd be looking to see what other organisations are doing and doing some further analysis to see if we need to change our offer.
Okay. I think it's important that when we do exit interviews for staff in this category, that we understand that this isn't a reason for them deciding to move on. I'm encouraged by 5.3 that this is something that we're going to be continually looking at to see if there are any changes. So, we would quite like regular updates on that. Thank you. Councillor Akinola.
Can I just ask, sleep-in allowances included in this? Do you still have sleep-ins in this authority?
Yes, we do still have sleep-ins, and they're basically according to the Green Book terms and conditions. So they get a lump sum for the session, the sleep-in session. So it's in line with some other authorities, I think, have moved away, but I think the majority are still on the Green Book and have the same approach as we do.
Anything else on this item? Councillor Rigby.
Just briefly, I may have missed it, Chairman, but the trade unions, you've had regular meetings with the trade unions, and are they in agreement?
Yeah, when we had the specific issue in supported living, they were involved in that, and then we've talked to them, and they haven't raised any particular issues around them, and haven't expressed any issues at the moment.
Anything else on this item? Right. Moving on to the people strategy. Is there anything else you want to add on this, Angela?
I don't think so, Chair. I think I updated the committee on the strategy, the first item, which unless anybody's got any specific comments or questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Anybody got any questions on this item? Thank you. Can we move on to the quarterly report on exemptions to the sickness policy, please? Thank you. Anybody got anything to ask on this item? Thank you. I haven't been informed of any urgent business, but is there anything anyone in the committee would like to raise? In that case, thank you very much for attending.